From the recent fees must fall, the e-toll subsidy gap, the recent drought experienced across the country, the ongoing drought experienced in the country, and the overall tough global economic conditions, Gauteng province not coming through unscathed. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I talk to Gauteng's MEC for Finance, Ms. Barbara Creecy, about the state of the province's purse and her budget outlook for the year ahead. Have you got any money?
Well, Bruce, I think we were quite pleased that even in these tough times we were able to add 2.1 billion to the provincial fiscus. Some of it, almost 700 million, coming from national government to meet the wage increase.
That's the 10% wage increment announced by the finance minister.
7%.
7% plus the 3. The extra, it's going to cost 10% more to employ civil servants now.
It doesn't obviously cover all of our needs, but we have allocated it to health, education and social development because we want to make sure that doctors, nurses and teachers are there, social workers for the vulnerable in our society. We've done quite well with provincial revenue raising, so I've got 400 million more than I expected to have.
Is that where is that coming from?
It's from two sources. The biggest source of revenue is from motor vehicle licenses, and Department of Transport is doing an excellent job there. They recently won an award for their revenue management system they've put in place that has eliminated fraud and mismanagement there, but also from internal investments that we are doing as provincial treasury. So that was a good bonanza in these tough times.
When you talk about investments as provincial treasury, what sort of investments does a provincial treasury make?
Well, I mean, it would just be short-term.
So going into money markets, that sort of stuff?
That kind of thing, yes. Just short-term things because we would have cash that would be in reserves until we need to spend it.
However, I mean, when one looks at the state of Gauteng as a province, it feels a little bit weather-beaten and worn on the edges. Is Gauteng a money problem?
Well, I think that we are predicting only a 1.2% growth in the Gauteng economy. Obviously, all of the macro issues that would be affecting the country as a whole are affecting this province, and perhaps a little bit worse than other places, because this is the place with the financial sector. This is the place that exports a lot of the commodities. This is the place with the manufacturing and retail hub that has been hit by the electricity challenges earlier in the year. But I'm nevertheless confident that we are doing everything that we can do. I don't feel that as a provincial government we're entirely powerless in this situation. Obviously it does mean that we have to pursue the Premier's 10-pillar program for modernisation, reindustrialisation and much more effectively. It also means we've got to be a lot more careful with government spending. I think particularly our infrastructure spend, we know that's very important in tough times to lay the basis for future growth on the one hand, and on the other hand to create employment. So I'm pleased to say last year we spent 99% of our infrastructure budget, big improvement on years past.
And when we talk about infrastructure, it's quite an important thing, because Rand Water sort of manages its own balance sheet, and we've had some issues with pumping water into reservoirs and people using water and living their lives or trying to live their lives, and water running out in some suburbs in recent times. For the average ratepayer, the Gauteng taxpayer, they might feel that infrastructure is crumbling around them.
Well, I think that certainly South African revenue payers generally haven't had a very pleasant year. But I think that we have had a lot of information in recent times. I think the Minister Pravin Gordhan was very clear that we definitely have enough water reserves, even if we don't continue to see good rainfall that we're seeing at the moment. And I think City of Johannesburg has been very innovative in the way they've been managing the electricity challenges. I think that they're now cracking down on us on our water usage. So I'm sure that going forward we're going to see a bit of a better situation.
Can you raise money easily enough in the markets? Are you able to issue bonds?
That's not a function of provincial government. No, unfortunately not. The municipalities can do that. National Treasury can do it. We have something called the Gauteng Infrastructure Financing Agency. We are really confined to things like triple Ps and also private-public partnerships. We do have 7 projects that are in the process of being put out to the market. They've all been registered with National Treasury. We're just waiting for various stages of the transactional approvals. And that would include our government precinct. We also have projects around solar energy, retrofitting of our government buildings. Those kinds of projects are in the pipeline.
But when it comes to revenue, it means that really you depend on the goodwill of the citizens of the different municipalities within the province to be doing their fair bit.
95% of what we get actually comes from National Treasury. So we depend on the goodwill of National Treasury.
Yeah. And when it comes to National Treasury, it depends on the goodwill of the citizens, of course.
Absolutely.
So there's a conduit through National Treasury through which money goes. And one of the big problems South Africa faces is, of course, the debt that is sitting in municipalities.
Yes, and I think that as provincial government, we've taken a firm decision that we can't in any way contribute to undermining the financial sustainability of another level of government. So yesterday I did commit that we were going to eradicate that debt within 2 years. We've put the first tranche in this particular budget.
When you say eradicate that debt, what do you mean?
Well, there's an existing debt of about 700 million, but we are also having a situation where, because particularly health and education don't have enough money in their budget to meet their current payments, we run the risk of continually accumulating debt. So yesterday we allocated over 750 million to this issue. 400 million was to pay off the first tranche on the accumulated debt, and the balance was to health and education, so that they are able to pay their current payments, and going forward in their baseline they have enough money to meet their water and electricity payments in all their schools and hospitals and clinics.
Are we running these institutions at their very best level possible? I mean, isn't the...
You're talking about schools and
Yeah, schools. I mean,
clinics.
state-owned institutions, state institutions, if they were run better and we had better management of these institutions, we had better municipal management, would we not have healthier municipal and provincial finances?
Look, I think that many of these institutions were built in a time when there was no consideration about how much electricity or water you consume. In recent times, many of the new schools that we are building, we recycle grey water, we have solar panels for electricity. I think it's really something that both departments want to focus on going forward, and that's why this project to retrofit government buildings with solar panels is very important, because ultimately we do need to get down these bills, and we need to get down the burden that they're placing on the grid, because if you could get all of these institutions off the grid, I'm sure that would make more electricity available for other people who want to do productive things.
And of course, Gauteng being, I don't know, it's a magnet for people from all over this continent, and maybe the financial issues that are in Gauteng are amplified by the fact that we have a migration issue in Gauteng as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we have somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 people coming into this province every year, not every month.
We would notice that.
Yes, but nevertheless, it does mean that in health, in education, in housing, and municipalities themselves, you're always chasing a moving target. So you have existing backlogs, but you have new backlogs because of the in-migration. And I think that we all know that the disease burden that's being placed on the hospitals and clinics, the tremendous burden that's being placed on our schools with the in-migration. People perceive the Gauteng education system as performing relatively better than elsewhere, and so there's a lot of demand.
Do you ever feel, as the person who's responsible for the finances of this big province, that you're treading water and the water level is rising ever slowly and you're getting a little bit tired and you're treading water a bit more slowly, that it's becoming just, the financial burden on Gauteng is just becoming too big?
Yes, I mean, I think that fortunately we are seeing adjustments from National Treasury in, because the equitable share is adjusted as the population grows.
But is that going to be enough?
Well, have you ever met a Minister of Finance who thinks they have enough money?
No, but we've got an economy that's virtually stagnant. Yes. We have a potential South Africa ratings downgrade in the wings. We have massive unemployment crisis brewing. There be headwinds. I mean, I hate to use the term headwinds, but that's the easiest word to use.
No, I agree with you. I think that's the case, but I still believe that yes, there could well come a time when there will be a very desperate situation with regard to our fiscus in the province. I still think that we have room to reprioritise. We have room to do things better for less.
Which part of local government is missing out then? If you're taking money out, you've helped yourself to a bit of the money in the contingency reserve to shore up the finances of the province. Where are you concerned about most?
Well, I think that we have to always be concerned about health and education. I don't think that if we were to have those MCs sitting around this table, despite everything I gave them yesterday, I don't think that they are happy. I think that there are pressures, even with the opening of schools next year, pressures for more textbooks, more classrooms, more school nutrition, more scholar transport. Similarly, we've already alluded to the situation in our hospitals and clinics. So I don't think that that they would be entirely happy at all.
But I'll go back to one of my earlier questions. I say, do we have a money problem or do we have a people problem in Gauteng, in terms of are the right people doing the right jobs to maximize the return on investment that you provide?
Look, I think that the Premier Makura has been doing a lot of work to push all of us to get the Gauteng government to be working much more effectively. One of the indicators of greater effectiveness of the government has been the decline in violent service delivery protests in the province. And I think that's partially as a result of the Interesano outreach program, which really sees all of us going out to communities on a regular basis, doing site visits, making sure, I think from a perspective of Treasury, going out and looking at a whole range of sites and seeing where people are spending the money that you're giving them and seeing where the problems and the blockages are. It's very useful because it means that you can pick up areas of incompetence or areas where of suboptimal performance, and you can actually say we need to do something about that. I think the other side is the whole institution building side. We're doing an enormous amount around things like contract management, verification, employee verification. We employ 250,000 people. You don't want to pay anybody who doesn't work for you. Things like paying service providers on time. All of this is work that we've been doing over the last year, and a lot of what it's about is making sure that the scarce resources that you have actually meet the frontline service delivery target and aren't consumed with a whole lot of red tape and bureaucracy.
Barbara Creecy, thank you so much for coming in. Barbara Creecy is Gauteng's MEC for Finance and e-Government as well, and she has got the unenviable task of balancing the books in a very difficult to balance environment. There'll be more Moneymakers on the show tomorrow. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.